Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to submit to the podcast, you can do so by email at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Alright, on to today's Malicious Compliance stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Medium Savings 4968, Cheap Beats. Short and fun story, recent story in the last few months, one-time thing so far. Preface, my father and I share horrible handwriting. I have really curdy cursive. My dad's can be worse, and so he'll write in print. So this is one of the more recent cursive mixed print written times involving a grocery list where I made it funny. Okay, it was a prank. Story. I was at the store with this badly written grocery list. My dad was nice enough to break the list down into sections so I didn't have to run department to department. So when I got to the meat department, I saw something written as cheap beet. In actuality, my father had, odds are, written cheap beef. Translation, go check the manager's special section for whatever is cheap. I don't care, grab it. Still, I called to double check. Dad, hey, did you write cheap beets or cheap? Dad sounded half asleep and cut me off. Huh? What? Listen, I'm in the middle of working on something. You need to pick up whatever I put on the list. But Dad, I just need to double check. Look, I'm busy. Just buy what I have on my list and we'll sort it out later. Cue Malicious Compliance. Okay, Dad. I hang up and decide to have a little bit of fun. First thing I do is buy a cheaper cut in the manager special section. Cover my butt so dinner isn't ruined. Then, when I'm in the produce section, I look for beets. Guess what? Organic is on sale. I call up Dad again. Dad, how many cheap? Dad cuts me off. Look, either buy 2 or double or guess, okay? Good God. Can you at least tell me if you want organic? Yes, organically grown or grass-fed is fine. I took everything to the checkout and paid. As I walked in the house to drop off my father's groceries, he starts double checking it. Hey, where's the... I finally got to cut him off. Right here. I hand Dad the bag of cheap beets. Cue surprised Pikachu face. You said everything on the list, and guess what? They were cheap. Dad looks at his list, sees his mistaken T for an F, and looks at his bag. Continuing surprised Pikachu face. We had a good laugh, and a few minutes later, brought him the real beef. Dad admitted he was actually asleep when I called earlier, so I woke him mid-nap, half flustered and annoyed. No fallout except I had to find an inventive way to cook beets, but thought the prank would be worth it to slug through one beet dish. Though Dad now checks his list and even walks up to me and says, "It's cheap beef, son," he still laughs. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Real Ultimate Papo. It says, organic beets can be absolutely delicious. Roast them skin on, peel, cube, and serve with goat or feta cheese and some greens. Pairs with discounted beef really well. Can we safely say for this one that OP administered a beating to their dad? It was a great story, and I think it's kind of funny that Dad continues to carry on the beef. OP, great work on your beat trail of Dad. This story comes to us from Mustard Unavailable. You can find a better place to stay? By all means, go ahead. So we're getting a couple of storms, and it's been heavy rain and wind for the past week. It's bad enough that certain areas are evacuated. I live in a pretty good house that can stand that level of wind and rain. Where it's located, flooding is not a concern. So relatives, friends, and neighbors are welcome if they need a place to stay. In comes Aunt Kay, 60s, my mom's sister, and her 3 children, female 32, male 28, female 20, with their children. Aunt Kay is a hassle, and honestly, I'd rather not deal with her. But her place isn't in a good spot. So I let them stay at my place until the storm blows over. Aunt Kay has been nagging and complaining non-stop. All she does is lays around on her phone, complaining about everything she can think of. Her kids have told her to stop, which turns into her becoming a raging, screaming witch. So one day while we're in the living room, Aunt Kay comes in and was talking to another aunt, Emma. Aunt Kay was complaining about my place, and Aunt Emma was trying to tell her off, but ain't no stopping that word-vomiting hag. Aunt Kay then says she can find a better place. Mind you, it's been raining all day and the winds have gotten stronger. You go outside and you'll be pelted and maybe fly off if you aren't careful. As her oldest is telling her to stop, Aunt Kay just keeps going and tells me my house sucks and whoever built it had crap for brains. That set me off, as the house was designed by my parents and they put their heart and soul into it. So I told her to leave and find a better place then if she doesn't like my place. Aunt Kay looked offended and started telling Aunt Emma what I had just said. Aunt Emma told her off. Aunt Kay looked at me and just tried to go back to her bed, but I told her she had to leave and find another place. She didn't want to apologize and told me I was being sensitive and needed to respect my elders. I told her she didn't respect me, and since she could find a better place, she ought to leave. I wasn't backing down, so she went and got her stuff, and when she saw her kids and grandkids weren't going with her, she was not happy. I gave her an umbrella and some cash. That happened around 9 a.m. She came back around 2 p.m. drenched and defeated. She gave me a quiet apology and begged to be let in. Turns out she went around to some of her friends' places and even her boyfriend's, but they were either gone or telling her off for effing around in the storm. She now just lazes and keeps quiet. I don't care if she still complains, but at least I don't have to hear it. OP added an edit down at the bottom. It says, "Edit, this happened in the Philippines. She did return the umbrella, but not the cash. It was $5, around 250 pesos, for fare. This is nothing new from her. She'll try to push boundaries to get her way, but if I'm near, I call her out on it. She's a big believer in respecting your elders, but what she did is seen as a massive FU. You don't insult hospitality. She's been getting verbal smackdowns from other relatives for what she did." Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Deranged Kitsune. It says, "Make sure she understands that your generosity has reached its limits with her. Before the next rains come, tell her she needs to make arrangements to stay at one of those better places, because she certainly won't be back at yours." OP, I agree with this commenter. You need to set some boundaries and let her know that next time she can find somewhere else to go, because you're not going to let her walk all over you. I completely understand having respect for elders, but respect is earned and not automatic. I don't think she's earned the respect that she thinks she deserves. This story comes to us from McSmashly. "Time to find a new job and accept any offer? Don't mind if I do. My former boss didn't realize that to actually make money, he had to show up for work. Instead, he came and went as he pleased, and expected me to pick up the slack, and essentially to play the role of receptionist, paralegal, office manager, and attorney. I never gave legal advice, he just expected me to, and so did his clients. His friend was my divorce attorney and worked in the same building, so he'd pop in just to chat, see how things were going, etc. But he started noticing my boss was absent more than not, and questioned how things were going. I started confiding in him that I was really concerned because I could see former boss shelling out more than he was making, and his clients were less than pleased at never being able to speak with their attorney. Then, former boss started doing some unethical and shady things to move cases along, and I started getting really nervous about what would happen if former boss got caught, and what it would mean for me. I told my attorney, former boss's friend, all of this, and he said that his own firm needed extra support staff, but he didn't want it to appear like he was poaching me from his friend on purpose, and that I had to talk with former boss about the state of the office and see if there was a way to salvage things. I never really got that chance though, because later that day, former boss stormed into the office and told me I needed to start looking for a new job and to just take the first offer I get, because he was probably going to have to shut his doors in the next 90 days, and he couldn't guarantee me a paycheck. I spoke with my attorney friend the next day about it, and he shrugged and said for me to just give my 2 weeks notice and call it a day. Later that same day, former boss came into the office and told me to hold off on finding a new job and to give him a month to turn things around. Sorry, but I've got bills to pay, so I'm not going to sit idly and wonder if I'm going to see a next paycheck or not. I drafted my 2 weeks notice only because my attorney friend asked it of me as a professional courtesy to his friend, and gave it to my former boss at the end of the pay period. Cue surprised Pikachu look from former boss. You're leaving? But why? Per our conversation on such and such date, you advised me to find other employment, so I did. Where? Friend's law firm. Seriously? When I make this business work, I'm going to want you back. Is that going to be a problem? Good luck. What's he paying? Less than you and half the hours, but at least I know his checks won't bounce. I heard from my replacement on his first solo day, I trained him during my last week, that my former boss regretted telling me, on a whim, to leave, because I was the only one who knew anything about his cases. Sucks to suck. He shouldn't have left me to run his firm without help, knowing I'm not an attorney or licensed paralegal, while he went on lavish vacations and ignored all his clients. Even if former boss wanted to try to get me to come back, I've already been bumped to full-time hours and gotten a raise in less than a month, and there's promise of a second raise very soon to put me at what I was making at former bosses. But here, I get paid holidays, PTO, and sick leave. No way on God's green earth would I go back to former boss. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Mistralius It says, I bet the only reason your new boss didn't match your hours and pay at first was because you were left on your own so much, he wasn't sure how much you knew about the job. Guess it didn't take long to prove yourself and vindicate his instinct that you might be a good hire. OP responded and said, that was part of the reason, yes. My former boss also worked mainly with probate and county courts on administration and guardianship cases, whereas my new boss only does family law cases in district courts. There's a bit of a learning curve, but he was impressed at how quickly I can catch on and remember these different policies and procedures. Initially, my role was mainly clerical, but now I'm absorbing a few basic responsibilities of his paralegal, though only what I'm qualified to do, contacting courts and requesting copies of documents or initial drafts of basic documents. In my new boss's words, I'm not yet fully accountable for all my work since he or his paralegal review every document I am assigned. But once I lose my training wheels, that's when I get bumped up to my former salary. All's well that ends well. I love all the malicious compliance stories we get where a boss says, well, you should go find another job. And then the employee does, and the boss goes, why'd you do that? I also want to touch on one more thing here. When you're leaving a company and the boss of that company says, oh, where are you going? Where's your new job? You don't have to tell them. They might sabotage you at that new job, and it's really not their business. This story comes to us from Dashand. Manager doesn't allow skin color descriptions. Years ago, I was working at a corporate chain sports bar. One of the managers famously had short man syndrome, where he had to be right at all times, and didn't allow anyone to deviate from his edicts. One day, a server was asking him to go talk to a customer due to our mistake. When asked which person to speak to, the server replied, Table 300, the black guy wearing, as she was cut short by the manager yelling at her, we do not refer to people that way. We do not see race. We do not see color. They are all customers at this company. Do you understand me? Manager was sure to nitpick absolutely everything and micromanage her for the rest of the night. Fast forward a few weeks, same issue with the same server. Remembering his previous screaming fit, she told him to talk to the guy wearing orange at table 250. It was football season. Virtually everyone in the building was wearing the home team's orange. Manager had to awkwardly ask the customers who had an issue, deeply embarrassing him. Once he was back in the kitchen, he really laid into the server for embarrassing him before firing her on the spot. The next day, we all verified his previous instructions and her malicious but correct compliance. So the general manager was forced to call her up and offer her job back. Manager was not disciplined in any way, but that's restaurant life. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Pancake Nom. It says, "What is embarrassing about, hello, I'm the manager on duty. I was told someone here has a concern. How can I be of assistance?" OP responded to this one and said, "That takes poise and social abilities that he did not have." Another commenter down below called Funky Pete said, "To me, the race thing is fine if it's distinctive. If there are 4 people at table 300 and the person you are directing them to is the only woman, you would naturally say the woman at table 300. If there are 3 black guys and a white guy, saying the white guy at table 300 makes sense. Saying the white guy at a table full of white guys would be stupid, obviously." Yep, I agree with these commenters. This guy just really doesn't understand racism, so he thinks he needs to stop anything that refers to somebody as different. I feel like OP could have played around with this one a little bit more though. When the boss said, "We don't see color here," OP could have just said, "Oh, okay, the person at that table there, the one in the jersey, yeah, they want to see you." That would just go over so well on game night. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.